Hi, welcome to our channel Good News. I think a lot of people in China are saying, China needs its own huge airplane. At Shanghai Pudong Airport, the domestic C919 big aircraft with the tail number B001J successfully took off. Everything went well for 3 hours, from takeoff at 6:52 to a safe landing at 9:54. The C919 performed admirably and made a successful landing. The domestic C919 big aircraft, designated B001J, has successfully completed its final test flight, signaling the completion of the last test before the aircraft is put into service commercially and fulfilling an 8-year-old dream of the Chinese people. People in China were quite happy to hear this news since they had been anticipating this day for far too long. A period in aviation that belonged to Boeing and Airbus is going to expire, and a period that belongs to China itself is about to begin. However, I have a query: why does China absolutely require large aircraft? Understand why? If you're unsure, watch my video for the solution. The first and last tests were flown in the C919 aircraft. Even though the C919 model has undergone several tests, numerous media accounts continue to bear the designation first flight. Not that I'm bragging. The C919 has previously been tested with engineering aircraft that were used to test data, but this test flight will be with the actual commercial model. This test flight has a considerably distinct importance since it is the first C919 commercial aircraft to be delivered to China Eastern Airlines and because it is a commercial aircraft. Second, this is the C919's maiden flight following delivery. There were no mishaps, and the automobile as a whole was really smooth. Third, the C919, which will shortly be put into formal commercial service, has completed its final test flight. For 16 years, China has waited for a huge aircraft. Because China has waited much too long for this enormous jet, it seems strange that anybody would be in tears. Although the C919 project was formally founded in January 2006, it was not deployed until November 2008. Many individuals discovered that despite the 3-year gap, the project did not advance. What use did these disappeared 3 years serve? Discover talent. Top expertise is exceedingly hard to come by in China for jobs like system architects, aircraft designers, and aircraft engineers. The answer to this issue cannot be found in money. Before China, there was no knowledge of producing a whole airplane, and expertise in many disciplines was not properly developed. But many of the exceptional skills that have been developed are worthless, and the majority of them have left the country. The humiliating scenario is that although Airbus and Boeing have a monopoly on big aircraft, China developed the C919 to circumvent their dominance, yet the best industrial expertise in the world works for both of these corporations. How should China proceed? Using Airbus and Boeing as models? Although it is still unclear if the C919 will be successful, most workers won't be eager to quit their jobs at Boeing out of concern for the future. Because of this, China C919 assembled such a top-tier squad. Every skill was earned the hard way, and it took over 3 years to assemble the full team. It has been about 9 years since the project results were successfully launched in November 2008 and the C919 made its inaugural flight to Shanghai in 2017. China has essentially begun again in the last 9 years. Every stage, from design to manufacture, from frame to system, from raw materials to components, is highly challenging. C919 must advance 102 critical technologies, ranging from component production to material selection to flight control systems. The C919 project originally stalled because of the sophisticated technology in engines and propulsion systems, which is why the majority of patents are held by other nations. 70% of the technology comes from abroad. Is this also a Chinese-made aircraft? The C919 was produced in China over the course of 16 years, yet 70% of its suppliers are from outside China. The thrust reverser and engine exhaust system are produced by the Nisei Company, a joint venture between the United States and France, while the turbofan engine is made by CFM International, a joint venture between the United States and France. Starting engine manufactured by Hanway Air. American Hanway Airlines produces brakes, wheels, and tires. After reading this, many individuals believe they have been duped. How is a C919 like that ever a domestic airplane? Did China need 16 years to construct an aircraft's shell? China has constructed an airplane shell using 15% resin-grade carbon fiber material, which lowers the C919's air resistance by 5%. On the Boeing 737 and Airbus A320, 1% of the material is utilized. China's aircraft shell uses a third-generation aluminum alloy, which boosts the aircraft's toughness by 15 to 20% while decreasing the weight by 10 to 15%, allowing it to fly quicker and safer. But China produces more than just aircraft shells. Integrating system design effectively is essential. The successful mass manufacture of the C919 is significant in that it demonstrates China's integrated system design skills. Boeing proposed this phrase. In a nutshell, it purchases airplane parts from all over the world and then carefully designs and assembles the aircraft to make it fly. Isn't it similar to competing models in how simple it sounds? If building an airplane was actually as easy as assembling a model, there would be many aircraft manufacturers in existence. But the truth is that just 5 nations worldwide, including China, are capable of designing airplane integrated systems. And Comac, the company that makes the C919, is thought to have the best chance of overtaking Boeing and Airbus. 70% of Boeing's raw materials come from outside sources, and McDonald's employs labor on the assembly line. There is not much of a distinction between China and Boeing in terms of industrial model. Only 2% of the work for foreign vendors in the Boeing 727 program. Boeing was an independent aircraft maker at the time, but it changed to boost profit margins and raise revenue. Boeing increased the burden of external suppliers to 70% of the industrial structure with the introduction of the Boeing 787. That is to say, Boeing functions both as an airplane manufacturer and a global supplier of components. In the previous 10 years, Boeing has laid off a sizable number of technical staff members and fired a sizable number of engineers and designers in order to save money. You might not have known that, in a covert inquiry, Boeing was discovered to be among the assembly workers who sell pizza from Pizza Hut and fried chicken from McDonald's, and these individuals haven't even undergone systematic training. What's worse is that these employees continue to use illicit narcotics in their free time. Boeing can manufacture an airplane in just 9 days with such skilled labor. Would you risk it to pilot such a craft? In any case, those who build airplanes are afraid to take them. Moreover, 2/3 of the assembly workers responded no when asked if they would risk taking the planes they had chartered, even if it meant their own deaths. The cause of accidents happening so frequently. The Chinese should be responsible for ensuring their own safety. Boeing alone has been involved in 11 of the 29 accidents, with more than 50 fatalities that have occurred in the last 10 years, or an average of 1 catastrophe per year. Why did Boeing have the guts to patch the fracture at the wing-to-fuselage junction and keep selling the aircraft? Why did Boeing discover that the nose was significantly tipped upwards before takeoff, yet it only created an MCOS system to maintain the nose down and continue to fly? Every time it is discovered that there are quality issues, why does Boeing apologize yet never make a change? Boeing has the trust since China lacks its own aircraft and would be left without any if it did not purchase Boeing aircraft. China will continue to purchase Boeing aircraft, no matter how awful they are. Such a terrible truth. Everything is different with C919, and this is the reason for C919's existence. I believe this to be true from both a technological and an ethnic perspective. China needs a large aircraft. China needs it, but it doesn't have to be flawless or free of flaws. If China doesn't own this jet, international aircraft makers may pressure and humiliate it indefinitely. Only China owns a large aircraft. We can only have the courage to engage in discussions with international aircraft makers at the same level by protecting the rights that should belong to China. These rights are much more significant to China than the actual aircraft. Thanks for having your watching in this video. You can add your ideas or suggestions below. Please keep following our channel and like our videos.